Okay, let's dive straight into the massive shift happening right now in AI frameworks. If you've been tracking the tech industry lately, you already know the ground is literally shifting beneath our feet. We're way past tweaking basic chatbots, right? We are officially entering the era of autonomous AI agents, systems that make decisions and execute really complex tasks across multiple platforms entirely on their own. And honestly, understanding the architecture making this possible, it's no longer just a nice to have bonus. It is absolutely vital for your professional survival. Let's get into it. Section 1. The AI inflection points. Adapt or decline. To really grasp the urgency here, we need to talk about a concept popularized by former Intel CEO Andy Grove, the strategic inflection point. Generative AI is arguably the biggest inflection point in history. What does that mean for us? It means developers have to adopt these new paradigms or, honestly, face sudden obsolescence in the job market. Think about it. When a tech is stable, it's easy to learn, sure, but the financial rewards are pretty minimal because everyone already knows it. But when a new tech creates an inflection point, it shoots up like a rocket. You literally have two choices: adapt and see tremendous growth, or ignore it and begin a catastrophic decline. There's just no middle ground anymore. Moving on to part 2, the framework chaos and the evolution of AI tools. Look, if you're feeling totally exhausted by the relentless pace of all these new frameworks, your frustration is 100% valid. It's been an absolute roller coaster. We've seen this chaotic, messy evolution in just a matter of months. Pre-2023, we were basically just sending simple prompts to raw REST APIs. Remember that? Then early 2023 hits, and LangChain bursts onto the scene because we suddenly needed more context in tool usage. Fast forward to mid-2023, and Crew AI and AutoGen show up to handle multi-agent tasks. By early 2024, LangGraph rolled out its unified approach. The community was essentially throwing everything at the wall just to see what stuck, and it created an incredibly overwhelming landscape for developers. And this perfectly highlights the exact dilemma we all faced. You essentially had to pick between tools that were too simple to debug or too complicated to even learn. Take Crew AI, for example. You could spin up agents super fast, but the second something broke, finding the actual HTTP request that failed deep inside its hidden layers was a complete nightmare. Then you had LangGraph, incredibly powerful, no doubt, but it mashed short-term and long-term workflows into this massive, unified approach. Managing the state transfers between nodes got so insanely complex that even veteran enterprise developers were left scratching their heads. Which brings us to Section 3, the OpenAI Agents SDK and its layered architecture. This is where a massive breakthrough happened in March 2025. Instead of LangGraph's notoriously confusing unified approach, OpenAI released this beautifully elegant, lightweight, layered SDK that's just incredibly easy to adopt. OpenAI basically realized something crucial. Developers do not want a massive, tangled web of logic. We want a clean, layered architecture. Layer 1 handles your standard API responses, and Layer 2, the Agent SDK, sits right on top. It does all the heavy lifting of routing and tool calling, but without obscuring your view of what's actually happening under the hood. And the benefits here are just huge. First off, OpenAI made the strategic choice to avoid vendor lock-in. You're not trapped using only their models. You can easily plug in other industry standards. Secondly, it drastically cuts down on those debugging nightmares I mentioned earlier. Since the logic isn't buried under 5 layers of abstraction, you can see exactly where a failure happened. And maybe the best part? It strikes this perfect balance. It automates the tedious framework stuff, which is about 30% of the work, while leaving the rest entirely to the standard custom Python code you already know how to write. All right, part 4, workflow types, short versus long-term. To actually use these tools effectively, we really need to clear up a massive industry confusion between two fundamentally different AI tasks. This was the fatal flaw in a lot of earlier frameworks. Think of short-term workflows as dynamic, single-session tasks. Say you ask an agent to plan and book a weekend trip to Murray. It dynamically searches hotels, checks the weather, confirms with you, and books it. Boom, done in one session. Long-term workflows, though, are continuous. Picture an agent monitoring your email 24/7, filtering spam and drafting replies based on years of context. That process runs forever. Right now, the OpenAI SDK is the absolute perfect target for those dynamic, short-term workflows. It makes execution incredibly lightweight and fast without forcing you to build out the heavy database persistence you need for long-term tasks. Let's jump in to Section 5, the Model Context Protocol, or MCP, the Universal AI Port. This is the second massive solution transforming our landscape right now, and it's the piece that brings the whole shebang together. Before MCP, connecting an AI to an external tool meant you had to manually write tedious, overly complex schemas for every single API function. Want your AI to talk to a database? Write a schema. Wanted to talk to Slack? Well, time to learn Slack's exact API, write the function calling logic, define every parameter, and just pray it actually works. It was exhausting, and honestly, it scaled terribly. But MCP changes everything. Think of it like this. MCP is to AI what the USB port is to hardware. Remember the early days of computers? You had a weird, bulky port for your mouse, a completely different one for the keyboard, and another one for the printer. Then USB came along and standardized the whole thing. MCP is doing exactly that for AI agents. It's an open standard protocol. You literally just plug your AI into an MCP server, and it instantly knows how to communicate with whatever application is on the other side. And the adoption has been wild. There are already over 1,100 open source MCP servers built by the community. That means you don't have to write custom integration code anymore. Whether you need to connect to GitHub, Google Drive, or your company's internal tools, odds are someone in the community has already built the MCP server for it. Your AI agent just connects as a client, and suddenly it has hands and eyes directly into all those external systems. Plus, this protocol is maturing incredibly fast. We're seeing some amazing bleeding edge upgrades. With OAuth 2.1, we finally have strict enterprise-grade security. They've also moved to HTTP transport, which enables real-time bidirectional streaming, so your agent can actively converse with tools instead of just sitting there waiting for a single slow response. On top of that, JSON RPC batching lets your agent fire off 10 requests simultaneously, and serverless deployment capabilities mean you aren't paying to keep cloud servers running 24/7. Your MCC server just wakes up, does the job, and goes right back to sleep. It's a massive money saver. Section 6. The Bleeding Edge. Embrace the future. So, what's the big takeaway here? It's how rapidly the professional landscape is shifting right beneath our feet. Relying purely on traditional development stacks just isn't going to cut it anymore. If you look at freelance job boards or enterprise roles today, the demand for standard web dev is shrinking. But jobs requiring agentic AI integration, they are exploding. Businesses don't just want a static database and a standard front end. They overwhelmingly want autonomous agents that manage that data and interact dynamically with their users. If you aren't integrating these new agentic SDKs, you risk being completely phased out. The inflection point is officially here. Will you adapt or will you decline? The opportunity is just massive for developers willing to embrace the bleeding edge right now. We've seen how the OpenAI Agents SDK drastically simplifies the core logic and how ECP gives your agent seamless access to the entire digital world. The tools are here, the standard is set, so the only question left for you is, as the rest of the industry scrambles to catch up, what will your first autonomous agent build for you?